and I was asked to speak today about what is the post-millennial generation like. So that's the Gen Z group. And so many of you are probably working with Generation Z, and maybe you have already noticed a lot of the trends of Generation Z. And we'll be talking about that today. And I'm really excited because I'm actually joined by one of my own graduate students. He's an amazing student. I consider him one of my mentees, and he's been just not only a bright student, but a go-getter. And he's actually a member of Generation Z, and one of the people that I consider having a lot of promise, especially in this area of the K-20 career and college readiness pipeline. And he's going to present the first 7 or 8 slides here, and then I'll be speaking after this. So his name is Braydan LaFleur, and he'll tell you a little bit about his background.
Hi, everybody. My name is Braydan LaFleur. I'm a Master's of Education and Counseling candidate. I'm currently at LSU. This is going to be my first year, and I'm really excited to work with Dr. Curry in all of these counseling presentations, as well as being able to just meet and talk to and see as many different people as possible. And with that, let's just get right into what we're talking about today. So, how would you complete this sentence? Students today are, what exactly are they? Are they bright, hopeful, creative, thoughtful? Maybe some very positive adjectives, or maybe even some negative adjectives. Maybe students today are maybe annoying, lazy, self-centered. Maybe they make a lot of excuses. I see somebody right here said bold, well-equipped, but selling themselves short. That's a good one as well. Well, no matter how you decide to describe students today, everybody is a little bit different. But even whenever we are different and unique, we still hold some of the traits that our other members of our generation hold. So, why is that? So, as I said before, each person is unique, but also each generation is unique. Whether you are a builder, a boomer, a Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, Alpha, or Beta, everybody is different. But the similarity, which we can kind of connect with, is a cohort effect. And cohort effect refers to the observable differences in characteristics or behaviors between different generations of people. These differences stem from the unique historical and social experiences that cohort group encountered during their formative years. So, let's first talk about the builders, which is also known as the silent generation, which was born around 1928 to 1945. Technically, their cohort effect started and basically describes them as a resilient generation who was shaped by a war and economic hardship, known for their discipline, loyalty, and work ethic. Now, if we go over to the boomers, they were born in 1946 through 1964, and they grew up during post-war prosperity. They're associated with cultural revolutions, consumerism, and a very strong work identity. Then we move on to Generation X, which was 1965 through 1979. They moved to be more independent and a little bit skeptical, but they did bridge the analog and digital worlds while growing up during economic shifts. Generation Y, also known as millennials, were born in 1980 through 1994. They were the more tech-savvy and value-driven generation. They came out of the age during the rise of the internet and global connectivity between nations. There's also Generation Z, which I am part of, which were born through 1996 through 2010. These are the true digital natives, or as I like to call them, basically the firsts. They were raised on social media, smartphones, known for their diversity, inclusivity, and also a lot of entrepreneurial mindsets. And then the next one we have here is Generation Alpha, 2010 through 2024, which they were the first generation entirely born in the 21st century, growing up with artificial intelligence, tablets, smart fridges, and anything else smart you can think of from the get-go. Next, and the final one we have right now is Generation Beta. While there's not a lot we can say about the cohort effect on them yet, since they are just born, they are projected to be the most technologically immersed and globally connected generation, shaped by rapid innovation and climate realities changing around them. So let's go back into the topic of Zoomers. Who are Zoomers? So, as I said before, the Zoomers were born between 1996 and 2010. So they drink alcohol far less than previous generations. So Gen Z drinks approximately 20 less per capita than millennials did at that same age. They socialize in person less than previous generations, likely due to their online connectivity, and they are more interested in a healthy lifestyle, likely shared online through the social media platforms or videos that they're watching. Gen Z is often called Zoomers as a direct contrast to the baby boomers. The Gen Z lifestyle is fast paced and heavily interwoven with technology. They are always having that mindset of what's next? I just did this, what's next? After that is social awareness, which is the concern for fairness and justice. Statistically, 92% of Zoomers are more likely than previous generations to engage in public protests and 68% more inclined to participate in political issues through social media platforms and the online world. They also have an entrepreneur spirit. Many want to own their own business or desire flexible work structures. And flexible work structures is very, very desirable for Zoomers. After that, we focus on mental health and setting boundaries for ourselves and other people. And we are prone to anxiety and depression. And I personally believe that we are prone to anxiety and depression due to a giant digital overload, a constant social media pressure, global crises that's happening everywhere from around the world, not only local, but online as well. Academic and career pressure is extremely high for us. People are always telling us, be someone, make money, don't be poor. What are you doing with your life? So these are all things that contribute to anxiety and depression for Zoomers. So let's go a little bit deeper. So Zoomers are not as brand loyal as millennials. Millennials would usually stay to one specific brand and follow that throughout, say, most of, if not the rest of their lives. They would also do that with their work. They would start at the bottom and then work all their way up to the top. If you stay in one position, you are going to be promoted the longer you show loyalty. But Zoomers do not necessarily have that same mindset. Zoomers are also more budget conscientious. We are more likely to get the cheap option. We don't want to spend all this money on, let's just say, the top brand, whenever the same thing can be done with just the bottom level basic thing that we can get. So that's another way of just saving money. Generation Z also prefers social media apps, specifically Snapchat, WhatsApp, over the original things such as Facebook, Twitter, uh, anything else like that. Usually we decide to choose disappearing content because we feel like that content's not going to haunt me or come back to me, or somebody's going to pick up what I sent to somebody else and they're going to use that against me. So that's why we like disappearing things, because it makes us feel like it's not just going to be held against me later on. We are more diverse and inclusive than any other generation. We are actively incorporating people through, it doesn't matter if it's, let's say, the nation's ethnicity. We're very not ethnocentric. We like to incorporate other cultures, people, races, genders, or anything else like that. Gen Z also has less tolerance for traditional career paths, as I said before. We don't necessarily want to spend all of our entire lives, 30 years, to maybe get one or two steps in a company. We are more likely to seek immediate gratification and advancement and recognition quickly. And we also like a lot more flexibility in our work. Uh, they also tend to want a boutique or personalized experience. Instead of boutique, you can also think of the word like a niche experience or anything else like that. We want what we're doing to be personalized, how exactly we want it to be personalized. And yes, of course, we're going to have parameters, but we want to be able to incorporate ourselves into what we are doing. So let's next talk about Gen Z and their parents. So all of this is according to Gallup and Polling, which was a 2024 journal and study. They are very close to their parents and enjoy spending time with them. So whenever I first read this, I was just like, well, yeah, me specifically as a Gen Z, I'm close to my parents. But as the next line says, they wish that their parents understood their feelings more. So while, yes, I'm close to my parents, sometimes I feel like my friends, acquaintances, or even work buddies are closer to me than it is my parents. There's a difference between being close with somebody and actually getting to share your experience as well as being open and talking about your feelings with somebody. And personally, as a Gen Z, I don't get that same feeling with my parents as I do with other people in my generation. Parents also worried about children's future plans and mental health. All of these things are almost at the 50% level. So these parents are 42% more likely to worry about the future plans of their children, as well as the mental health status of that child as well. Gen Z parents also reported that less than half of their kids discuss mental health or they discuss future plans with their child. So, whenever parents are raising a child, they're not necessarily talking about mental health with their child, maybe feel open with the discussion of mental health with their child or even future plans with that child as well. Now, let's talk about what teachers said about Zoomers. So, this was from intelligent.com on 2023. 1 in 3 educators who have taught for 11 plus years say that Gen Z is more difficult to work with than prior generations. They also say that 50% of educators say that Gen Z students have complained that their class is too hard. 1 in 3 educators say that Gen Z students are unprepared for the workforce, that their work ethic is the primary reason, and communication as the second. And another one, which I can agree with, is they are obsessed with getting A's. And I can agree with that as well as maybe some other people, because if you're part of the Zoomers, you know that if you don't get the grades, you don't get anything. You don't get any support, any tops, anything such as that. So you are focused on getting those A's. Now, let's talk about why employers are firing Gen Z employees. In a survey of 1,000 employers who have hired graduates from the class of 2024, 6 out of 10 of them report terminating employment of at least one Gen Z employee. 1 out of 6 employers report where, let's just say, they're not wanting or willing to hire another Gen Z employee because of it. 3/4 of the companies surveyed some and said that some or all of their recent graduate hires were unsatisfactory in some specific way. Employers' concerns included a lack of motivation or initiative. 50% of the leaders surveyed cited that as the reason as why things didn't work out. Gen Z, according to these employers, have a lack of motivation or initiative. But is it a lack of motivation or initiative, or is it something else? Next thing is bosses also pointed to Gen Z being unprofessional, unorganized, and having poor communication skills. After that, leaders say Gen Z's work challenges included being late to work and meetings often, not wearing appropriate office attire, using inappropriate language for the workspace, and a couple of other things.
Thank you, Brayden. Well, it sounds really bleak, doesn't it, in many ways? However, I just want us to put some of this in context. Gen Z has been pushed really hard academically. When I look back on some of those teacher comments, especially, I think, you know, I have a fifth grader at home, and my fifth grader is asked to do things that I was asked to do in late middle school and in high school. And I mean, I know y'all are probably thinking, well, maybe you're not too sharp, lady. But I mean, I was considered a very high achieving and scholastically advanced student. So we are pushing kids further and further and further in schools today. We have kids taking classes like algebra in seventh grade and geometry in eighth grade. And students are being asked to do harder and harder tasks. So they're so focused academically, and that explains a lot of the anxiety too, doesn't it? And burnout that we see them experiencing. So you get kids who are pushed and pushed, and then they really aren't having a chance to develop some of the other skills, like these employability skills, because a lot of them are not getting jobs as early as we did, maybe back in the 90s, 2000s. So students who might have gotten jobs doing things like babysitting or working at a fast food restaurant or things like that when they were in their early teens back, 20, 30 years ago, don't really have those opportunities because they are pushed so hard academically now that they don't really have that time. Another thing that we are seeing is the pressure from parents to do things like be involved in two or three sports, in addition to these very rigorous academic courses at a young age. And then the comparisons on social media. Like I said, I do have a fifth grade son, and I am just astounded at the investment parents have in their own identity based on what their children are doing. My son is involved in a lot of things. I really said I do not want him involved in a lot of things. He chooses to do a lot, but I do not say to other parents, oh, look, and my son's doing this, 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 and this, and I don't post it on social media. But I've seen so many parents who do that. And it's a habit that people get in of posting these things. And then their children are being compared. And because of that, a lot of parents feel pressure to push their kids even further, talking about, oh, my kid's on this travel team and my kid's on that travel team. So, of course, this causes even more anxiety for kids because instead of playing baseball because you enjoy it, you are being compared to all the kids in the neighborhood. So it's really caused a lot of pressure on our children and that kind of constant anxiety. So by the time that kids do finally get to a point where they're into the realm of being a young adult, now they're transitioning and they're asked to do things they haven't had the opportunity to develop. So it really is an opportunity for us, those of us at the college level and people who are employers. So we don't want to think of our students who are at the college level, at the graduate level, and employers. We don't want to think of our students having deficits because they don't. They've actually done a lot, way more than some of us did when we were coming through school. I love working with this generation. They are incredible. Um, but we need to look at them from a strengths-based perspective. So if you have a concern, and I'm going to go through some of the concerns that Braydan just broke down, one way to think about this is to use the strengths that they have. They have so many incredible strengths, and try to resolve these issues in some other ways. So they are digitally fluent, but they're also digitally reliant. So that over reliance on technology can be problematic when it comes to face and written communication challenges. For example, writing professional emails like text. So to address a concern like that, it's important to bolster that face-to-face and written communication skills, problem solving, critical thinking challenges, and to get feedback on it. So we want throughout the college experience to give them those opportunities. One of the things we do when they come even into our program is to say, listen, if you're writing an email to a professor, please use a salutation. Please write out exactly what it is you're asking for. Please understand that if you're asking for a meeting, we may not be available every day of the week. So ask, how much time would you need to meet with us? What is your concern? Let us know so that we know when we're scheduling with you about how much time we would need to meet. So being able to write a professional email, the reason we do that is not because we want to be difficult. It's because we want to teach them how to write an email. I recently got an email from a student on campus who asked me if she made a request of me. She said that she needed some help with an event, but she didn't give me the day of the event, the time of the event. She didn't let me know like how many people she needed at the event. And so it was a lot of like email exchanges just to get the information. So I'm trying to teach our students how to do that without so many emails. Social media proficiency. Oh, sorry, I just went backwards. I think. No, I didn't go backwards. See, okay, now this is why we need Gen Z. They are much better at navigating these things. Okay. Social media can cause some disruptions for Zoomers. They love to be seen online. They love to be online. And we have to remember, instead of thinking of that as like a deficit, that they are really active online and it's part of their social world. So instead of thinking of it as like, oh man, they're always hooked onto their phone. That actually can be a great asset for the rest of us. I do not love being on social media. It's kind of a pain for me, but I have realized that because our Zoomers are so great at it, they are teaching me some things about communication and being online. So we don't want to always think of this in some way as a negative, but instead, if it is problematic, if there's too much time online, there's a fear of missing out. They don't want to be away from their phones. It's important to set boundaries around it. So, for example, I have in class sometimes said, this is not a good time for your phone. So, set some guidelines. We have a lot of time in our counseling classes where they're going to have to be away from their phones. And I actually start to build that time in the second year of our program, saying, we're going to be doing counseling now, so you have to put your phone away. And helping them to recognize when you're with a client, you can't have your phone out. So it's time to start building that. And as they go through the program, they get better and better with it. And just recognizing when it's okay to have it back and when it's okay not to have it, and building their resistance and resilience around when they can not have their technology present. And also how to cope with not having it, because you do also need to recognize that it can be stressful for them. So if you're struggling with it, what can you do? Okay, the office ghost. You may have heard of this. So 34% of US workers, but more Gen Z employees, have posted negative things about their employers and their jobs. You may even have students who have, let's say, group text messages, and they may be posting negative things about professors. They may post negative things about their programs, uh, negative things about coaches if they're athletes. So you want to get them in the habit of recognizing the dangers of this. We work in a place where, this is an at-will work state. So you don't want to be posting negative things that can come back to haunt you. I've said that to students before. Be careful what you post, because anything could come back, even if you post it about another student in the program. We've had that happen before, where somebody posted, they just posted it to 5 or 6 other students, and then it came back and it really hurt another person, and it kind of causes bad relationships. You don't want to do that. So these are your future colleagues. Just reminding students that anything that you post is out there, right? Even if it's in disappearing content, because whoever saw it, saw it. So making sure that students are thinking about these relationships, even if you plan to leave a job, you never know who someone else knows. So thinking about that. If you explain the why behind something to Gen Z students, they're much more willing to accept it. Negative feedback feels not great to them. But if you give feedback in a way that shows you care about them and their future and the why behind it, I have found they're much more willing to hear it, especially if they know you care. 1 in 5 workers, Gen Z workers, refuse to take on work outside of their specific job description. And so sometimes you just have to explain to them, like, look, everything can't be in the job description, but here's what we really need from you. You're part of our team, and we really need some help here. I have found that just explaining to people, like let's say you have a GA and you need them to do something a little bit more, maybe explaining why you're asking them. You have a skill set that somebody else maybe doesn't have. I need you to do this because you're the person I count on, and I need this specific thing from you. Most Gen Z people will not mind if they understand again the why. So helping explain that they have a skill set that maybe cross training is something that you would like to do when giving them a leadership role. Gen Z employees have been accused of office ghosting. This is when workers claim to be on site but rarely show up. You may have had a GA do that or a student worker. Um, I have found just being honest with them and how it affects other people is really important, and not being angry about it, just explaining that you need them there and the why, and how it affects others, but also that they are a person who has a skill set that you do need, and that's something that they usually can take in terms of feedback. Educators and employers should address expectations, and remember, you're just addressing the expectation. Don't attack the person. Let them know you do care and that this is something important. Class attendance. Whenever I have a student who's chronically late, addressing it to the side, making sure that I'm saying to the side, I don't want this to affect you long term, and some people are going to judge this. Plus, you're missing important things. Gen Z is extremely ambitious. I've actually had a problem before with colleagues or other people telling them that they have too high of expectations. For example, maybe I'm going to get out and I'm going to do social media influencing, plus have my own private practice, plus this, I'm going to get my PhD at the same time, and I'm going to do all these things. I just don't think we're the people to tell somebody they can't, like, who am I to tell you you can't? However, because they are very, very ambitious, a lot of times they may take on a whole lot and they want kind of immediate gratification. So they don't really have a great threshold for being bored. And they don't always have a great threshold for not getting those rewards quickly. So maybe setting shorter term goals, teaching them to set those shorter term goals. Um, and so beyond the classroom, one thing that we can do is make sure that they're always getting some continuous educational experiences. And that may sound like, well, if they're in college, aren't they getting that? Yes, that's true. But also making sure that they're getting opportunities for hands-on learning, making sure that they're getting opportunities for things that are in the field, if you know what I mean, like those kind of practical experiences, giving them feedback on things they can work on. That's like a really important thing. We've actually started implementing yearly dispositional reviews with our students. So things that they can work on, but making sure you're also giving positive feedback. Here's something you're already doing really well. Here's something I think you can also look into doing better. And then giving them some specific feedback on things that they can work on. And then recognition, making sure that you are appreciating them. I try to give in my classes opportunities for students to take on leadership. Maybe they're going to lead a class activity, making sure they get that opportunity to do that, so that they know that, I don't have to always be the one in charge. It is a form of recognition. I want them to know that all of them, we're all part of this profession, and they all need an opportunity to do that. What about Gen Z athletes? So many of you are here today because you work with athletes, and that's an incredible opportunity for us. They may have very little experience with intrinsic motivation because they are constantly being rewarded in ways with their athleticism. So they may be focused on peer validation. So you want to talk to them about the why. Again, we're back to talking about the why and explore what they are learning from their sport about life. So Peggle talked about this in her 2023 article. So what are they learning from their sport about life? The function of failure, and that perfection's not possible, even though they're going to try over and over to be perfect. We don't want to compare athletes to each other, and let them know that their failures happen and that people matter more than perfectionism. That can be really hard on a campus where sports are held up as being so, so, so important. But letting them know that they matter to you more than their sport matters. I was just saying to Jason right before we started, whenever I have worked with an athlete, I don't ask them about their sport. I just don't do that because I don't want them to think that that's the thing I care about the most. And I've had athletes report in research that I've done that they've never been told about a career that they're good at or that they might be good at, that they've had people talk to them about their sport. And I'm talking about teachers here. So they've had people talk to them about their sport, but not about a potential career path. So I like to talk to them about what's going well in school, talk to them about their life, talk about them as a person, because it gives a chance for them to see that we care more about who they are than what exactly they do. So just making sure that we are always coming back to who they are and that they matter as a person. Um, Gen Z is likely to question rules and authority, and you're best if you don't take that personally. I always think that's good. We want them to be curious. We want them to question. I think that's good for every person in a democracy. So getting them to ask questions is good, and athletes may do that. So if you think of athletic agency, we want them to have chances to ask questions. I would say to coaches, um, ask for feedback from your athletes. I know a lot of coaches don't want to hear that, but yeah. Um, and they're used to instant gratification, but that doesn't always happen when it comes to athletics. So um, you want to address the how in terms of an athlete's actions will benefit them today and tomorrow, even if they don't get the win, even if they're having some difficulties and struggles at the time. So, yeah. Um, they do have shorter attention spans, and that's a lot because of being on their phones and having all that instant information. Communicate in shorter bursts, sticking to key points. Don't give them, a 20-minute lecture. Uh, and visual learning opportunities are always good. They can meet negative feedback with challenge or resistance. So make sure that you are showing them that you care first. And they have high anxiety and depression. So demonstrate care and encouragement. Normalize discussing mental health. Always normalize that. All right. So the future of work. The future of work is really important. And I want to stress this also with athletes. They should be scholar athletes. These are students first. And so we want to think about all of our students as people who are temporarily at LSU. They are our students, but they are students for a short time. And becoming their future selves is such an important part of what they are doing at LSU, both personally and professionally. The future of work, the World Economic Forum survey has shown us that basically we have 5 major trends that are impacting the future of work. And so Braydan and I really just wanted to emphasize for you all that, of course, technology is continuing to impact, but it's not like just social media. It's really AI, but being able to use AI in a way that is integrated into your work. And then robotics. So if you're thinking about things like cybersecurity, if you're thinking about ways to maximize your potential in your work, that's what we're talking about. There's going to be an increased cost of living. We've already seen that recently. The last year has really shown us that things are going up in price. So it's going to force us to really have to think about being creative, being innovative, because there's probably going to be some net job loss. This is not my opinion, by the way. This is like the World Economic Forum. This is not Jen Curry's opinion. So you don't have to be like, well, who is she to tell us that? Climate change mitigation, green jobs are probably going to continue to grow. There's going to be some demographic shifts. We have an aging population, even though some of us feel like, time is standing still. It's not. So people are aging, and as a result, there's going to be lots of opportunities, uh, not only in the healthcare sector, but opportunities to work with younger people to get those employability skills working. So if you are interested in working with young people, and Gen Z is a great example, get those employability skills up. And then geoeconomic fragmentation and geopolitical tensions. So we've seen some of that recently too, right? So just tensions between countries, tensions even between regions. We expect that that's going to continue probably long term. And so that could change how people are employed, especially international employment. Some of us work with other countries. That could change. So some of your students who want to work internationally, if you're an athlete, you may be working across countries. And so that could be something that your athletes need to understand, how to work with people in other countries, what they can and can't say, where, just being attuned to other customs and groups. So we want to address their desire for personalized experience. That is a big thing. So Braydan mentioned that kind of boutique niche experience. In some ways, we might be able to help them get those boutique experiences. For example, at a university, some curriculums have room for some personalized choice, some do not. So sometimes they can have some unique experiences, maybe a study abroad, maybe, for example, some electives, but there are some courses that you will have to take, and that's just the way it is. But remind students that they have the chance to do things like mentored research, CXC, service learning, and those are all ways to kind of build out those unique experiences. So explain the parameters of curriculum, what is flexible, what isn't, and some other ways that they can kind of make their own niche experience. Help students cultivate a growth mindset. They have been told so many times they have to be perfect. They've been tested and tested and tested, and got to have the right answers, got to do. That's not actually true in life. Like, you don't have to be perfect. So we need to really cultivate that growth mindset and let them know it's okay to not be perfect. I actually tell them when they enter the second year of our program and they start counseling people, you are expected to make mistakes. I totally expect that that's what you're going to do, because this is the place to do it. And I welcome your mistakes so we can co-learn together. You will get it, even if you haven't gotten it yet. So it's that Carol Dweck notion of yet. Use language that conveys an expectation that they are adults. You have opportunities to make decisions for yourself, and I'm here to honor that path with you. And when they are upset with faculty or other staff members, remind them to communicate that and like go talk to the person. And probably they're going to be happy to talk it through with you. We both know, meaning you who are watching this and me, that not all staff and faculty are going to be open to it, but a lot of it is going to be how they choose to communicate. All right. So we would like to open this up to questions. I know that was a lot in a short amount of time. Overeducated and underpaid. Yes. And pay may be a problem for a while. You're right. They are by far considered the most educated of all generations. And they're not only the most educated, but they are actually considered the smartest generation by intelligence tests. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, so lackadaisical attitude. But have you seen a lot of them that are very motivated and hardworking? I think sometimes they don't always know the expectation outside of content, like learning content. But when they do know, they usually are willing to step in and lean into like other expectations. Brayden, anything on that?
Um, no, not off the top of my head.
Anyone else?
A sense of entitlement. Personally, me being a Zoomer, I don't feel a sense of entitlement, such as, oh, I should get this, I should do that. It's more of, okay, what am I going to school for? What am I learning? What is the skill set that I have? And how am I able to put that skill set to the test whenever it's time to actually do things? But whenever I actually go and give 100% towards something, and I'm just met with the, oh, you didn't make it, or, oh, you fail, I kind of combat it with like, okay, why did I fail? Because I believe I'm doing this correctly. It's not a sense of entitlement. It's more of like, I know that I have a skill and I'm translating it. Why is this not being translated and given rewards?
Somebody asked if you are the exception or the rule, Brayden.
Here's
Yeah, and I have had a lot of athletes come through our program. So some female, more female than males. And they've been some of my hardest workers. But at the same time, I know that they realize that our expectations are this is not going to be easy. You're going to have a lot of work to do. So, I don't know what other professors are saying or doing. But yeah, also like a lot of passion around the work that we do in our program.
Students in healthcare
Go ahead.
programs often say they don't understand why they have to learn what they can Google.
Uh,
Well, they are in a healthcare position. So, whenever you are doing some specific careers, you may have some lacks where you can look up on your phone and find some information. But if you're specifically in the healthcare field, whether you're a nurse, a doctor, or even whatever it is in the medical field, you are supposed to know specific things within the field, and you're supposed to be able to translate that and put that into practice without having to pull out your phone, Google it, or anything else like that. Those people who are just going to pull out their phone and Google what are the symptoms, what do I need to do to put in like an NG tube or anything else like that, that's not necessarily someone who's going to be translating their skills. That's somebody who's just trying to translate just quick knowledge on the fly to get whatever they need to get done.
I also think there's a rationale there that maybe faculty need to explain to them the difference between Google research and actually knowing your field and triaging, right? So, um, I did a really interesting study 2 years ago with students in our program where I had them at the end of the semester do some work on AI, diagnosing something with clients versus actually um, working through a case study by themselves. And what they found is that AI did not always pull the best practices for this case study. And that was good for them to see because then they realized so you're not always going to get evidence based practices for working with a client. And I think if we were to have faculty who were using kind of like these models of, okay, you've gone through the content of this course, and now I'm going to ask you to use AI and see, like, do you know more than AI or does AI know more than you? And did AI do the best work? Like it gives the student a chance to see, I can't always rely on AI. I have to rely on what I know. And I know how to look up the information correctly. I've been taught how to use evidence-based practice to treat someone who has a diagnostic symptomology. And then I actually know how to align that to best practices of treatment and intervention. And when students did that, they were like, wow, I just assumed AI would always have a right response. They were blown away that it doesn't. And so it's really incumbent upon us as faculty to do that with our students and to help them see what those limitations are. So I do appreciate that, sometimes they think they can get the answer from Google, and I can understand why they think that because they've been raised in that kind of digital world. Um, so I see this being a former student athlete, like something that's changed maybe since COVID. Yeah, I know that during COVID, we were told to give like a lot of breaks and stuff to students and to be very flexible and maybe. So one of the things that we have shifted as a faculty, and I know other faculty have, is being more clear about expectations. We had lots of people having absences. We had lots of people kind of like coming in late or wanting to like lay in their bed and log in and stuff. And there was 2 years ago in the fall, we were like, that's it. That's over. If they're absent and they can't prove by policy, statement 22, why that absence is an acceptable absence, then it counts as an absence. If you miss this class more than this number of times, then you probably are not going to be able to pass the class. So we really had to like kind of crack down. And I think it's incumbent upon faculty to do that, to say like, this is the expectation. You either rise to it or you don't. And yeah, so we had to kind of crack down on it. So we were more flexible post COVID, and then we had to get a little more stringent. And that may need to happen with some athletes. There are some athletes who might need more flexibility, some that may not need as much. And I think that's where we have to get, a, a little bit more flexible in our thinking and working with people. All right. I'm aware that we're at 2:20, and so some of you may need a break. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your conference. Thank you. Braydan, you want to have the last word?
Um, Gen Zoomers they're tough, but you just give them support, a reason why, and consistent applicability will get it done. That's how I like to think about it. And even if we fail, we're consistent. We'll go back to it again and again and again.
Have a great conference.
Thank you again to Mr. LaFleur and Dr. Curry. We really appreciate it. And again, just a reminder, once we close the session, you'll be prompted for our session evaluation. Hope you guys can join us for some more of our presentations later this afternoon. Thank you again, everyone.